You are standing in front of a grill. Fresh cut of meat. It smells incredible. You cook it, you sit down, you eat. Now, here is the question nobody asks. Why was that meat from a cow and not from a lion? Not from a wolf? Not from a tiger? We hunt animals. We eat animals. We have done this for 300,000 years. But something stops us from eating predators. Something specific. Something buried so deep you never even noticed it was there. There is a biological reason, a chemical reason, and a reason so old it was written into your body before language existed. Stay until the end. First, you could eat a lion. Technically, the meat is not poisonous the way a mushroom might be. You would not drop dead from a single bite. Some indigenous hunters in history ate wolf. Arctic explorers ate bear. There are documented cases of shark, alligator, even crocodile. The option exists. The meat is there. But here is the fact that stops you cold. Of all the major protein sources humans have ever built a civilization around, cattle, pigs, chicken, fish, lamb, zero of them come from apex predators. Not one. Across every culture, every continent, every era. Something decided that for us. And it starts with math. It is called the 10% rule. Every time energy moves up the food chain, 90% of it disappears. A blade of grass captures sunlight. A deer eats the grass, but only keeps 10% of that energy. The rest burns off as heat, used to keep the deer moving and breathing. A lion eats the deer. Same thing. The lion only keeps 10% of the deer's energy. By the time you reach the top, you are feeding on the leftovers of leftovers of leftovers. A lion needs 15 to 20 pounds of meat just to survive a single day. As a prehistoric human, your choice was simple. Risk your life fighting a lion for 15 pounds of energy depleted meat, or hunt the deer, less danger, far more calories. The math was obvious. It was always obvious. But the energy problem is only half the story, because something else builds up inside every apex predator, and it is invisible. It is called biomagnification. Toxins enter the food chain at the bottom, heavy metals in soil, chemicals absorbed by tiny organisms. A small fish eats thousands of organisms and absorbs a small dose of toxin each time. Not enough to kill it, but it accumulates. A bigger fish eats thousands of small fish. The concentration multiplies. Then a predator eats thousands of those fish. The concentration explodes again. By the time you reach the top, the toxin level is not slightly higher than at the bottom. It can be millions of times higher. In 1966, researcher Charles Worster documented bald eagles dying along the Great Lakes. Not from direct poisoning, from eating fish that had absorbed DDT through the entire chain below them. The concentration was so extreme that the eagles' eggs were cracking before they could hatch. The birds were dying from what their food had eaten decades before. You have already felt the edge of this. You have been told to eat tuna carefully. Not because tuna is dangerous, because tuna is a large predatory fish, sitting high enough on the chain that its mercury levels are measurable and worth monitoring. Now, go higher. Arctic explorers in the 1800s learned quickly from indigenous peoples. Never eat the liver of a polar bear. A polar bear spends its life eating seals, which eat fish, which eat smaller fish. The vitamin A concentration that accumulates across those decades of predation is so extreme that a single serving of polar bear liver contains enough to kill a human adult. Not make you sick. Kill you. Multiple documented cases. Your body was simply never built to process what a lifetime of apex predation produces. And then there are the parasites. Predators eat raw flesh constantly. Their muscle tissue hosts organisms that have evolved alongside that lifestyle for millions of years. The most dangerous is trichinella, a microscopic worm that lives inside the muscle tissue of carnivores. When a human eats infected meat without cooking it to the correct internal temperature, the larvae hatch inside the intestine. They migrate out of your gut and into your muscles. Your body swells. Fever climbs. The pain is severe. Before modern medicine, the outcome was frequently fatal. Bear meat is one of the most documented sources of trichinella in the world, and bears are the one large predator humans have occasionally eaten throughout history. Every culture that ate bear had one strict rule: cook it completely, not for flavor, because if you didn't, the consequences were brutal. Now, think about a true apex predator, an animal that spent 20 years accumulating parasites, toxins, and biological baggage from everything it ever consumed. Your immune system has no preparation for that. It was never meant to. Here is something that makes this even stranger. Ancient humans killed predators constantly. Lion bones, tiger skulls, wolf remains, found at prehistoric campsites all over the world. They killed them. They wore their skins. They used their bones. But they almost never ate them. Researchers studying prehistoric campsites have noted the pattern. Predator remains show cut marks from skinning, not from butchering for meat. They were removing a competitor, not harvesting food. Your ancestors understood at a practical level that killing a predator and eating a predator were two completely different decisions. One made sense, the other did not. But here is what makes this stranger than science. Your body already knew all of this before science confirmed it. Psychologist Paul Rozin at the University of Pennsylvania spent decades studying the human disgust response. He found that aversion to carnivore meat appears in children before they are taught it. It appears across cultures with zero contact with each other. Something pre rational. Something that fires before your conscious brain finishes the thought. Right now, if I ask you to imagine eating a wolf steak, something in you reacts before you make a decision. That is not culture. That is evolutionary memory. The ancestors who felt no hesitation about eating predators sometimes died. From toxins, from parasites, from the chemical load sitting inside apex carnivores. The ancestors who felt a gut level resistance, who found the idea unappetizing without knowing exactly why, those ancestors survived. They passed that feeling down. Your disgust is not irrational. It is millions of years of survival data compressed into a single instinct. Not every predator is completely off limits. Humans eat alligator, shark in some cultures, bear, squid and octopus, ferocious hunters. The Inuit eat seal. What these share, they sit just low enough on the chain, or are consumed rarely enough, that the load stays manageable. The rule is not that you can never eat a predator. The rule is that the higher you go, the more dangerous the accumulation becomes. Lions, wolves, orcas, tigers, they spent entire lifetimes concentrating everything the chain below them contained. They are not just animals, they are living archives of everything the food system ever touched. And eating one means taking all of it at once. Every animal you have ever eaten, the chicken, the beef, and the fish, every single one sat low enough on the chain that the chemical load was survivable, low enough that the parasite risk was manageable, low enough that your ancient disgust response did not fire. Your entire culinary tradition, every protein source your culture ever built a meal around, was not chosen randomly. It was filtered, generation after generation. The ancestors who tried the wrong animals sometimes didn't survive to pass the habit down. The ones who stuck to prey animals did. The cow on your plate is the result of a biological calculation that ran for hundreds of thousands of years without anyone writing it down, without chemistry, without microscopes, without knowing what a toxin was or what a parasite did. Your ancestors already knew. They made it feel wrong. They passed the knowledge down the only way evolution allows. They made it instinct. And you are here today because it worked. If this made you look at your dinner differently, subscribe. There is more where this came from.